You're listening to the Vacant Lot Podcast.
Hello again, and thanks for listening to the Vacant Lot Podcast. My name is Sylvie, and this is an exploration through the mind of a huge superfan on one of her favorite shows from the early 90s, Hey Arnold. So welcome. Thank you for joining me for episode 2 of the Vacant Lot Podcast. In our last episode, we talked about the show Hey Arnold and some of the best episodes to introduce a newbie fan. After recording the episode, I realized I didn't even really talk about who the character Arnold was. So I thought a bit about, say someone comes up to you and they ask you to describe the character Arnold from the show. Let's say someone asks, "Who is Arnold?" And you reply, "Well, Arnold is a 9-year-old boy. He lives with his grandparents in a boarding house by the name of Sunset Arms. He goes to school at PS 118 where he's a 4th grader. He's a very nice boy. He has lots of friends. He's nice to everyone. And he always likes to help out. He's a dreamer. He's a bit of a romantic. And just an all-around good kid." That's the response I would give to someone if they asked me who the character Arnold is. Let's rewind that, and let's say the person came up to me and asked, "How would you describe Arnold?" And I was mute. It would probably be easier to write down what I thought of the character Arnold, or I can take that person aside and I could show them episodes of the show that best exemplified the characteristics and traits of Arnold. And that's what today's episode is about. I'm going to go through 5 episodes that I think best encapsulate the character Arnold. So the top 5 best Arnold episodes, if you will. As I mentioned in my last podcast, these top 5 episodes that I have chosen, they are now set in stone. These are the opinions of myself as a fan. You may have 5 other episodes that you consider the best episodes to describe Arnold, in which case, great. So once again, if you don't agree with the list, please don't crucify me. I'm just a fan. So let's start off the list with The List. Yeah, we're going to talk about the season 1 episode, The List. Basic premise of this episode: it's probably the end of the school day on a Friday, and Arnold tells his friends that he's going to attempt the infamous list, which is, I guess, kind of like a old school chainmail list. You have to keep in mind this was before the age when the internet and mobile phones were really prevalent. This was the mid 90s. So a lot of things must have just passed by word of mouth, or in this case, a single sheet of paper, which details the perfect way for a kid to enjoy his perfect Saturday. So there's a numerous amount of activities on the list. You eat 3 bowls of cereal, you watch Saturday morning cartoons from the very early morning until Dance Craze, which I can only assume is probably the last kid-centric Saturday show, let's say like 11:30. So you're basically watching cartoons all morning while eating sugary cereal. And then you ride your bike down the biggest hill, and then you go sit through a movie several times, and voila, the kid's perfect Saturday. So Gerald is in awe that Arnold's going to attempt this impossible list and warns him that he's kind of tempting fate. I guess the Saturday gods would not be pleased of him trying to cram all these fun activities into one day, which Arnold takes with a grain of salt, but proceeds to do anyway. So what happens the next day is Arnold proceeds to have the worst day of his life. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong. It's a Murphy's Law Saturday. He gets up late, he has no sugary cereal at home, the TV breaks, he's impeded from trying to get his bike. He tries to play catch with everyone at the park, but the first kid that he sees ends up stealing his ball. And when he tries to go to the movie theaters, the theater actually has technical difficulties and has to shut down early. So everything that can go wrong will go wrong. He goes home and laments his bad luck, and only when his grandmother, who appears being essentially corralled by a crane with a piano, only when she shows up on the roof and reminds Arnold to look up, does Arnold finally accept that things will go wrong, but life moves on. So why is this a good Arnold episode? Well, I like it because, as I said, Arnold's a kid and he enjoys doing things that kids do. He's a normal kid, and normal in the sense of, even though he is for the most part a good boy, he's also a bit mischievous. Towards the end of the episode, when he attempts to go to the movie theater, he actually loses his money. And despite pleading to the box office woman to let him in, he's denied and then actually resorts to sneaking into the theater from the back. So he's not perfect, but what kid is? So it shows a well-rounded character. And as nice as Arnold is, as much as he looks on the bright side of things, even he has his days where he's just like, I can't take this. And it's good to see that side of the character. You see this more again in the season 1 episodes, which I love. And this trait oddly goes away by the time you reach season 5. I don't know why. There's a gradual change in the character, which happens in many shows and many characters. Take a look at the evolution of Homer and Bart Simpson from The Simpsons, especially Homer. He starts as like the everyman kind of father who wants to do right, and then in the end he becomes a literal cartoon character. He can't get hurt. He's a bit of a buffoon. I'm going off topic, but yes, I like the list because it shows both sides of Arnold. He's the good kid, but he's still a kid at heart. He'll break a few rules, and that's why I think this is a good episode. Next episode on the list for best Arnold episodes is Stoop Kid. As I mentioned in the previous episode, there are a lot of urban legend episodes in season 1. The one I had mentioned last episode was Wheezing Ed. There are a few others. I actually grappled a long time between which of the episodes I would put on the list. There's Pigeon Man, which is another good episode. Upon watching it again, I don't really consider it much of an Arnold episode. It's an okay episode, but it doesn't really encompass everything that has to do with Arnold. It kind of reflects more on the Pigeon Man and the city he lives in. I chose Stoop Kid because it's a good episode, showing off the trait of Arnold in that he likes to help people with no expectation of reward. He helps people just out of the good of his heart, and he wants everyone to be better and to be happy. So the Stoop Kid is one of those urban legend episodes. Arnold's playing football with his friends, and he inadvertently kicks said football onto a stoop, which unfortunately is owned by the titular Stoop Kid. Gerald proceeds to tell Arnold of the tale of this abandoned young lad who has never left the stoop. He lives on the stoop and has become embittered by the loneliness it's brought upon him to be the sole tenant of this mysterious stoop. So Arnold tries to devise a plan to get his ball back without Stoop Kid chasing him down the street. After watching him for what seems like 24 hours, like he literally stakes out in a garbage can, he realizes that Stoop Kid doesn't leave the stoop. So he has the brilliant idea of just going up and taking the football. When Gerald cautions him that he'll just get pummeled to death, Arnold points out, if Stoop Kid never leaves the stoop, then how can he get pummeled? So Arnold tests out the theory, and lo and behold, he's able to get the football because Stoop Kid will not leave the final stoop leading to the ground. So word gets out that Stoop Kid's afraid to leave a stoop, and all the kids in the neighborhood start taunting him, to which case he goes from being a menacing figure to a laughingstock. Arnold feels bad about this and decides to help Stoop Kid overcome his fear of leaving the stoop by showing him the many myriad of stoops throughout the world that he could explore if he leaves his own little stoop. So the episode culminates with Stoop Kid finally leaving the stoop and being able to explore the world. Not that he will, however. He has the ability to leave the stoop, but he is still Stoop Kid, so he decides to stick around for a bit longer, but thanks Arnold for his help. So again, there's a lot of episodes in Hey Arnold where Arnold just decides to help a person just out of the goodness of his heart. Even in this season as well, there's a similar episode, Tutoring Torvald, where he helps a fellow fourth grader who's much older than him try to pass a single test. Well, actually, I think he is forced by his teacher to do that, but he puts his all into trying to help Torvald do his best. Yeah, so I like this episode because it is another one of those urban legend episodes, but it just shows the tenacity and the good-hearted nature of Arnold as a character. And also, it's a fun episode with the titular Stoop Kid. Stoop Kid's afraid to leave a stoop. That inexplicably became a thing on the internet just a few years ago. I think there's actually a live action short dedicated to Stoop Kid. I think Nickelodeon did their own weird little musical short dedicated to the character Stoop Kid, which is funny because Stoop Kid's only really been in 2 episodes. He was in Stoop Kid, and then he had a weird cameo appearance in a later episode, Cool Party, but he didn't have a speaking line. It's a shame because the character was voiced by Danny Cooksey, whose claim to fame is Salute Your Shorts, another Nickelodeon show, and Tiny Toon Adventures, where he played Montana Max. And another little mini bit of trivia, I think he had a brief cameo in Mac and Me? Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, it's a good episode, great Arnold episode, great episode overall for season 1. Next episode I want to talk about, believe it or not, is the first episode not from season 1. Gasp! Yes, I do like episodes outside of season 1, and this is one of them. Next episode I'm going to talk about is Arnold Saves Sid. This is in fact a season 2 episode. Looking at the title, you're like, Arnold Saves Sid, so this is like an Arnold and Sid episode. Well, no, not really. We get to see more of the character Sid. We get to see his quirks and what makes him tick. But it's really more of a study on Arnold's character. Arnold and Sid are hanging out, and Arnold saves him from not really a life or death situation, more of a life or maybe mild concussion situation, but Sid reacts to Arnold's act of kindness so severely that he decides to dedicate his life to Arnold. After many, many, many instances where Arnold tells Sid that it's not necessary and it wasn't a big deal, Sid ignores him and proceeds to keep being his personal slave. After being ignored so many times, Arnold finally says, "All right, I've told him several times it's no big deal, but if he wants to devote his life to me, all right." So Arnold just goes along with it for a while to the point where Sid gets resentful and accuses Arnold of taking advantage of him. He ends his friendship with Arnold, and once again, Arnold not wanting to be known as the guy that people don't like, he goes out of his way to make it up to Sid and get him a token of appreciation, even though it was stressed several times that Sid didn't need to do anything. So I like this episode because, again, like upon first glance, it looks like an episode that's kind of more about Arnold and Sid, but it just shows that, Arnold does things because he can. He doesn't expect any sort of form of payment or reward. In fact, based on this episode, he actually feels really uncomfortable accepting charity from someone, and we see this. But he's also the kind of character that doesn't really like to rock the boat. He likes to keep the peace. So when he can't get the desired reaction out of Sid, he just lets Sid do what makes him happy, and up to the point where it no longer makes Sid happy. So even though Arnold didn't do anything wrong, he still feels bad about the situation and wants to make things right, as per the ending where he gives Sid a gift certificate to this weird pancakes and halibut restaurant that he really, really wants to go to. Next episode is another season 2 episode, Eating Contest. Simple premise, Arnold is encouraged by his grandpa to join the annual eating contest. Arnold is not that enthusiastic about being involved in the contest, but when grandpa tells him that it's the family tradition, he puts aside his prejudices against doing it and just decides to train for it. even when he finds out that there is a competitor that's nearly impossible to beat from PS 119, this little boy named Seymour that could literally eat anything. He's called the Disposal because he can eat anything. Arnold still decides to do his best and try to make his grandpa proud. Even when Grandpa sees that it's near impossible odds to win the contest, Arnold still decides to do it for the family tradition and also because he's really hungry. So, against all odds, Arnold is able to win the eating contest and preserve the honor of the family tradition of eating large quantities of food. I'm going to gloss over the ethical or moral issues behind competitions where people eat mass quantities of food, especially when there's people around the world that would kill for the opportunity to have that quantity of food available to them. That's obviously not the point of the episode. The point of the episode is Arnold doing things to keep the peace and make people happy. He doesn't want to do the eating contest. He actually tries at one point to get out of the eating contest, but when he sees how much it means to his grandpa, he puts his all into it and does his best. And that's just the thing. There's a lot of episodes where we see that Arnold is just an average kid. He's not better or worse than the other kids, but he puts his all into it. He puts a lot of passion and heart into what he does. It's very similar to the tortoise and the hare. Arnold is very much the tortoise. He's slow and steady, but he's determined, and in a lot of cases it works out to his advantage. In some cases, he's still just an average kid and he does average in what he does, but he puts his heart and soul into everything he does, and you definitely see this exemplified in eating contests. Final episode I'd like to talk about is a season 5 episode. I'm going to go on the record right now and say I particularly do not like the final season of Hey Arnold. There's a lot of great episodes in season 5, but amidst those gems of episodes, there's a lot of repetition and just not very good episodes. I don't want to get into that right now because I want to actually talk about an episode that I do like from season 5, and that is the Racing Mule. In the Racing Mule, some of the boarders from Arnold's home, Ernie, Mr. Wynn, and Oscar Kakashka, they pool their money to purchase a racing horse. Only after they receive the horse do they realize it's not a horse at all, but a mule. Ernie tries to salvage the situation by saying that there's actually a racing mule contest coming up as well, and that they could still make their money back. So they attempt to train the mule, but it's stubborn and doesn't particularly like any of them, except of course Arnold. Arnold's very kind to the mule, and the mule seems to respond well to Arnold. So the boarders convince Arnold to become their jockey for the race. So things go well. There's a bit of a mishap where the mule becomes ill, almost to the point where he might not be able to walk again. And discouraged that he might not be able to race, Arnold spends the night with the mule, and it's probably one of the most touching scenes in the entire series, and the reason why I put this episode on the list. Arnold spends the night and he sings to the mule, "You are my sunshine." And it's really cute. Again, I'm not a huge Spencer Klein fan. Spencer Klein is one of the actors to take over the reign of Arnold after Torrin Caudell and Philip Dyke could no longer do it due to puberty. Spencer Klein was the third one to take over the reins. Generally, I don't like his character, but there's just something so touching about hearing him sing to a mule. And it's miraculously, this love and attention from Arnold bolsters the mule to want to race, and they race in the competition. And I won't spoil the ending for you, but things turn out all right in the end for Arnold and the mule. So it's a small gem of an episode in a cluster of not so great ones from season 5, but I think it's probably one of the greatest Arnold episodes. So, okay, that is the episode for today. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for tuning in once again. If you would like to ask me any questions or contact me, then please do not hesitate to email me at thevacantlottpodcast@gmail.com. If you would like to follow the podcast to know when I release episodes, just go on iTunes, the Vacant Lot Podcast, or you can listen to the episodes as well on vacantlotpodcast.com. You could also follow me on Twitter at Vacant Lot Show on Twitter. So that concludes episode 2 of the Vacant Lot podcast. My name is Sylvie. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
The song you are listening to is Sweatari by the band Escalate. Be sure to download their album The Pop Machine on iTunes. That's the band Escalate, ESCALATE exclamation point.